Well, hello. As Tara said, my name is Shalene. I'm with Dotting with Friends, and I have had the pleasure of knowing Tara now for probably 4 years. I want to say about 4 years. We were in another community group together, and it was a large group, and she happened to volunteer to run one of the smaller groups, and I just happened to be lucky enough to land in her group. And I'm from Toledo, Ohio, so I'm not sure where are you guys all from. We've got a pretty small group, and you're all are working on your background, so I think maybe we can take just a minute. Where are you guys from? Thank you for having me here with you tonight. I'll start with Karen.
I'm from down by Cincinnati. So
Okay.
in Forest Park, if you're familiar with like
Not
Cincinnati at
terribly,
all.
but at least I know
Yeah.
where Cincinnati is. We're neighbors that way.
Yep.
Nice to meet you. And Shauna?
Nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
I'm from east part of Cincinnati.
Oh, okay. All local folks. And Heather?
Originally from Chicagoland, but I've lived in Minnesota now in St. Paul for 17 years.
Okay. All right. Well, nice to meet you guys, and I really appreciate you having me here. I used to teach dotting online over COVID. That's kind of how I got started. Is I'm a sign language interpreter by training, and so like everybody else, I went into an office and had a group of people that I saw every day, and then suddenly we went home. That was that, and I was able to still work from home because a lot of my work was remote, so that worked out. But I just missed seeing people. And so as I said, I worked remotely. So I had a background in doing some online training. So I just decided to do what I enjoyed, which was dotting. And I've been doing that for a few years prior to that. And I started teaching dotting classes online. So did that for maybe a year or so. And then, everybody got tired of Zoom. And so I kind of stopped doing it and took a break. And then about 6 months ago, I started teaching at a local foundation called the 577 Foundation, Perrysburg, Ohio. So I've been teaching in front of people live for the last 6 months or so. And Tara even came up. She was part of my very first class, which was so nice of her. So that's kind of what I do now is just once a month because I do still work full time. I do assessments rather than actual interpreting right now. But I just enjoy still working remotely. So I just enjoy getting together with people who share my other passion, which is dotting. And so again, just thank you so much for having me. Tara had plans to go to Florida. And then you know how that went. We're glad that she's at home safe and able to join us. So I'm looking forward to painting this with you. This was just a little something I put together kind of with Halloween colors. One canvas painted black. I did use for mine, let's see, I'm going to move this back in a minute. I did use the 16 segment stencil. If you guys want to do that, I know you have to wait a few minutes while you guys are still getting your canvas prepped, and that's fine.
I've added the phone view as well. So let me know when you're ready for me to take your beautiful face away.
Okay.
I'll do that.
You guys just let me know when you feel like you're ready. Do you have your paints poured and all of that? I know, not yet. I know that Tara had put a link for like a step-by-step pattern that you guys can follow, or we're just going to be doing it together as well. So it's really, you don't have to. But one thing that she did mention to me, because I did this for my other group, I did a couple different variations of colors. Like there's 2 oranges on my pattern and 2 purples. You don't need to worry about that. We're just going to do just 1 orange and 1 purple because that's what came in your kit. So that's what we'll do. And there's also one step that mentioned a white stylus. And I think in your group, you've just got the blue and the green, and that's fine. I think the green, the small end of the green is really close to the same size. So we'll just make that minor adjustment when we get to it.
Almost.
But typically my classes is made up of mostly first timers. So you guys have a ton more experience than I'm used to. So please do not feel like I'm talking down to you. I'm just used to explaining everything, and you probably don't need that. So just say, yeah, we know. All right, we are going to be starting with our center dot. We are going to be using a yellow rod with the bright green paint right at the center.
Not the same as the pink color.
The rod?
Yeah, I don't have a yellow one.
Okay, I would say probably use the largest one that you have. What colors do you have?
I have a pink. Pink is the largest one I have.
You should have one more, a big fat yellow one.
Do you know what millimeter it is?
12.
12. Okay, because I've got some other things here I could use.
It's funny that you say that. You said you've got some other things you can use. So probably when Tara and I started dotting, probably about the same time, everybody just used stuff around the house. There were no tools. There were no Amazon kits. And I started out, there was a particular brand of crochet needles, knitting needles, and they had flat ends. And that's what everybody used. If you bought a pattern online, it would talk about the Crystal Light knitting tools. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And then Michael's bought them out. I couldn't figure out what happened. I couldn't find them. And I asked another friend of mine who did a lot of dotting, and she said she found out that Michael's bought them out and wouldn't make them. Now, I don't know why. I'm sure it had to do with knitting, not with dotting, because it wasn't as big of a thing back then. But now there's all kinds of different tools. Do you guys have different tools?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, okay. So that yellow one, or whichever the largest one that you have, is what you would want to start with for this one. And then we're going to move to our green stylus with the orange paint. And we're going to use the large end. Now, if you used a smaller rod, you think, than that yellow?
No, I did. I have rods that are marked in millimeters.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to do one on every other line. So we're going to have 8, but I'm going to do the old trusty north, south, east, west technique. You guys do that?
Yeah.
I still rely on guidelines a lot. I just have never gotten very good at my own symmetry. And so I still really like to use the guidelines, but I still try to practice some of the techniques. Oh, shoot. Did I do it all right? No, I did all right. Okay. I thought I already messed up. So it should be every other guideline if you've got 16. But I started out with 4, and then I went back in and divided into half. Not too bad. Is that close up enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me see. Okay. Okay. And I use the purple rod. Use that purple rod. And I'm going to use the orange paint again. And I'm going to kind of offset those dots. So since we've got 16 guidelines, I'm going to go in just above and between those dots that I just laid. It's not quite filling up that entire space in between, because we're going to have our next step. If you looked at the picture that Tara included, we're going to have some teardrops where the tail comes down in between these. So we want to have just a little bit of space left to bring down that tail.
Oh, mine doesn't have that. So it has like a pin. My picture doesn't have that.
The orange doesn't have a pin, but the next step, the purple will.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm sorry. What I meant was I just wanted to leave a little space
Gotcha. I got
in
you.
between looking
It's
ahead.
dark on me. Sorry.
Yeah. I bet it is dark. You're going to have to go inside.
It's like pitch black here, and I don't think Shauna's very far from me. She might be 45 minutes away. I don't know how she's still outside.
So once you get done with that one, then I'm going to use my pink rod, and I'm going to do the purple paint. And I'm going to do dots again that are just above and between those orange ones. Now, what has worked for me to get a good teardrop is to lay down that first dot flat, and then I'm going to go back a few times, and I hold the rod at an angle. So I'm not trying to center it, because I always ended up with an oval. I was never very good at that centering, but I went back a few times and loaded up that paint, and I've got a nice mound now on there. So I'm going to use, I don't know if you happen to have a mechanical pencil. That's my favorite tool to make teardrops. If you don't have a mechanical pencil, I would say just use whatever the very smallest tip of a stylus that you have. Oh, my lid won't come out.
And we're using the pink rod.
That was, I think, yes, the pink rod. Oh, my lid must be broken. Well, I guess I'm going to use a stylus then. Okay, for me, my smallest one is the blue. So I'm not going to go all the way. I'm not going to touch the canvas. I'm just going to kind of break this surface. And I'm just going to pull it real slow and let that paint fall off until I reach that orange dot. For me, that's filling up like the entire space. So I only do one of those at a time, just because if I do all 8 dots and then come back to do the tails, a lot of times the paint has started to dry up. So it works better for me to do 1 dot at a time. And I think I only really need to go back maybe 1 or 2 extra times to load up a little bit more paint. I'll come back with my stylus. Again, the small end, and just break that surface a little bit and kind of drag the paint down slowly. And then I can go back and shape out that teardrop a little bit. And some people like to push the tails. Some people like to pull. I rather pull. It's just kind of what's comfortable to your wrist. Kind of what you get the best result. I'm going to practice a little bit. Everybody doing okay?
Yeah.
I think I went a little overboard with the paint on my first teardrop there, and it's kind of spread out to my orange dots. So I'm going to let that dry, but I will go back once it's dry, and I'll just put another dot. I'll use a slightly smaller rod, and I'm going to cover up where that little bit where it's kind of spilled over. And when I cover that up, then you won't ever notice that the dots were touching before. And you've probably also noticed that your paint tends to dry a little bit darker than what comes out. So I think you won't notice it. I think you also get a thinner tail if you don't put your stylus all the way down to the surface of the canvas. I feel like it just kind of gives you more choices with how you want to shape it. If you want to keep it thin, if you want to build it out to be a little thicker. When you put your stylus all the way down to the canvas, it's just automatically thicker, and you can't thin it down at that point. There you go. I like this paint. It's a little different than what I have used in the past, but it's a really nice consistency. It's Decoart. So really, you can't go wrong with Decoart, in my opinion. They're my favorite. Do you guys have any other brands that are your go-tos? Nothing else?
Well, I'll mention, since I've tried a little bit of everything, I really dislike the Michaels Craft Smart brand.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a fan, which hurts my soul because I love Michaels.
Yep.
I've got a lot of the folk art, but I think that's kind of thick, so I tend to stick with deco art myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Michaels brand was bad until we got the Decoart paint. And I was like, oh, this is so much better. Because I didn't do dotting before. Like I was using a brush and,
yeah,
you know,
I don't
it
mind
just
the
wasn't as
Artist Loft,
noticeable.
like the Artist Loft paint, I like, but their Craft Smart, like
Yep.
craft paint, I dislike. I noticed that when I had
That's
done a paint
bad.
party with it, and like you could see underneath layers, and so people weren't able to cover things up, and I was embarrassed. I was like, I can't believe I brought this stuff. They must think I'm crazy.
I agree with you. It's too thin. So I think for the next step, we're going to use the green rod, and I'm using the orange paint. Oh, I'm sorry, the bright green. And I'm going to do 2 dots side by side, and I'm going to try to make those even with the top of the purple. So it's really on this guideline, 1 on each side. And I'm going to dip between each dot so they're the same size. The Walmart brand is another one that does not work for me. It's too thin. I always say Cracker Barrel. I know that's wrong. Apple Barrel, right?
Apple Barrel.
Apple Barrel. Yeah, their paint is too thin for dotting. It might be good for other kinds of art, but not for dotting. Although, I mean, if you have some of the thickening medium from Liquitex, you can always adjust the thickness. It's like a gel medium. Does anyone have any of that? Do you use that? more often I have to thin mine out, like, you know, if you use any of the heavy body acrylics that are in the tubes. And also folk art. They're not in a tube, but they are thick. And I always have to thin those out. I'm still going to use my green stylus, but I'm going to use the smaller end. Turn that around, and I'm going to just walk the dots down from the 2 I just painted down to the orange. Coming along. You see any of those little air bubbles? Go back and try to pop those out. I just saw something. I read something online. I haven't tried it myself, but someone said if you get bubbles in your paint, you can take, like, if you have a little spray bottle with rubbing alcohol, that you can spray your paint with that. Has anyone ever tried that? That makes me nervous. I don't know that I want to do that, but I suppose if I was just practicing, if you spray it with rubbing alcohol, it will pop the bubbles. Like, that's interesting. How are we doing with the pace? Is everybody kind of close to being caught up? Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right. Next, I'm going to use the green rod. Does everyone have a green rod? It's the biggest one. No.
No.
I would use whatever biggest rod you have.
Our biggest would be the yellow, the 12.
The yellow. I'll use the yellow then. Let's use yellow. And I'm going to use it with the white paint. And I poured mine a while ago. My white's already a little bit dry. Got a little bit of a skin on it. Okay. All right. We're going to do the white dots just above the 2 green ones, but I'm going to leave a little bit of space. So for me, that touches this line up here at the top. And that will leave just a little bit of space at the bottom because I'm going to walk the dots around it. So it's about every other guideline, just above the green dot. And I feel like some of my dots are just a little bit misshapen, so I'm going to go back and fill those out just a little bit. Sometimes those bigger rods, it's hard to get the perfect dot shape. So sometimes I go back, but you know, distance is our friend. No one is looking as close at our work as we are, so.
Is Miles out there? Oh, he's all right.
There we go. Not bad. Do you have the 3 clear rods in your kit?
No, we don't have those.
Okay, I would use, I'm using, let's see.
The smallest clear rod from your kit, I think, is 3 millimeters, which is
Yeah.
the same size as the green large end.
I would say
You are. Okay.
go ahead and use that one. Use the larger end of the green stylus. And we're going to use the orange paint. And we'll just really load up your tool with paint. And put as large of a dot as you can on there. That looks about right.
Boy, Miles talking to you.
works.
What end of the green stylus are you using? The small or the big?
The big one.
Thanks.
And then once you're done with that, then I would use the large end of the blue stylus and then walk the dots along each side. I think once we get done with this little step, I'm going to have to step away for just a second. My dog is standing here giving me the death stare, which means he must need to go out.
Did you say the big end of the blue stylus?
Yeah. My dog is content to just like sleep all day long underneath my desk. But if he has to go, he will just stand there and stare at me until I get up and let him out. Which I suppose is better than the alternative. So he doesn't bark, he doesn't scratch, he just stares. How's everybody's walking the dots coming along? Has everybody been in the group the same number of months? I just didn't know if you had the same, basically same amount of experience, because I feel like my walking the dots definitely has gotten a little bit better over time. You know, like anything else, the more you do it, the better it gets.
Well, I don't know about you all, but I've been there since the beginning. No, I think Shauna that was here earlier, she started with me, I believe in March.
Wow.
And then Karen might be one of the most recent.
Okay.
I think Heather might have joined in between there somewhere.
Okay.
I found you in June. I think June might have been my first month. It was either May or June. But I found you when I was on an administrative leave from work and was insanely bored and needed something to keep me distracted.
All right, you guys finish that up. I'm gonna real quick run and let my dog out, but of course that means in a few minutes after that I'm gonna have to run and let him in, but I'll be right back. Okay. Let's see. And then I think I did just a little, take one of your small, probably the green, small end of the green. And I did just,
Oh no.
that's my dog. I think I just did a tiny little dot on top to make it look a little pointier. We actually have a big cornfield in the back of our house, and he's always seeing critters in the cornfield and barks. We actually get coyotes back there, which I mean, we basically live in town, but in the cornfield we do get coyotes.
I get them, and I'm in a pretty like urban, like a big neighborhood.
Isn't it surprising?
I still get them. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to use the yellow rod, and I need more purple paint. Now we're moving out to the last grouping of petals. And I'm going to have these, the top of this will be right at, let me see, try to see if you can see that. That very outer ring is where the top edge of my purple dot is going to be. Because we're going to do some swoops going from that, the purple dot we're going to put down right now, down to this purple teardrop. So with your yellow rod, do a series of 8 dots pretty far out. So my dots are going to take up almost 2 rings, if that makes sense. See that? I'm so bad at these. Like, I can't see straight up. So these are going to be between the petals, the orange and white petals. And do y'all use a Lazy Susan?
Yes.
Aren't they the best?
I'm not with this one, but I normally do with the rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I felt like this one, it felt like it was wiggling too much
Oh, okay.
to me in my own like perception of it.
You just mentioned rocks, which made me think we camp a lot and we go to a lot of state parks. And one of the state parks we went to in Michigan this year, I want to say it was called Lakeport State Park in Michigan. And they had the biggest collection of painted rocks I've ever seen at a state park. It was huge that people had just been adding to it and adding to it and adding to it.
Oh,
But
that's kind of neat.
it really was. So of course I had to add to it.
We have a bunch at the site I work at.
At the site?
Yeah. So like we had rock out, just basic landscaping rock.
Oh,
Over the years, people have brought them and like painted ones, exchanged them. So now we have ones that were like made on site, ones from like, sometimes we collaborate with different universities, ones that people have brought back from other universities.
nice.
It's really neat, but it's not a lot of them, but because they're like kind of spread out, it's interesting just to see like where they came from. Oh, that's neat though.
Very cool. All right. I'm going to use the large end of the green stylus again. And I'm going to, again, use purple. And I'm going to walk dots around this. But I'm going to start out, I'm sorry, before I walk dots, I'm going to do like a triangle at the top. So I'm going to dip and dot and dip and dot. And then the smallest one at the top, I'm not going to dip another time. It'll be smaller that way. So dot and dip and dot, and then don't dip and dot. Give it a little crown. We should be getting pretty close to the edge. But hopefully there's enough room for one more layer of walking the dots after this. And then still use the same green large end and walk the dots down each side. Tara, I remember, I want to say it was like a year ago, you guys bought some property, I think. Did you end up moving to that property, or you have two properties now?
No, we're still living in the same house, and we haven't built anything on that property yet. There was a lot of like unfun construction stuff that had to be done first. Like it was primitive. There was no electric, no water.
Yeah.
And so we've been working on that. And this past year we've gotten kind of lazy and all we've done is mow it. And so it's just a big empty field.
Okay.
But we've been talking about how we need to get moving on that because we feel like the plan was when our youngest graduated high school, and that's almost here. And it's funny how you feel like that stuff is so far away, and then all of a sudden, it's here. So we got to get moving.
A little tip, I'm sure probably Tara has already shared this with you, but if I run out of paint before I get to the end, if I'm using the larger end of the stylus, then I'll just turn it upside down, go back a couple dots, and make my way to the end. A lot of times I'm just not patient enough to wait for the paint to like flow off the tool. I kind of rush it with the other end, but it works. Everybody says, oh, you must be so patient. And I'm like, no, not really. You would think, but not really. What works best for me is to have a couple different projects to work on at the same time. So if I need to let one dry, I can have something else to work on. Otherwise, I rush it.
That's what I do. I have a whole table of things in progress.
Yeah.
Different stages.
That's kind of one thing. I don't do a lot of the really large projects, but I can generally finish a project in one or at most two sittings. Otherwise, sometimes with those larger projects, unless I'm like on vacation and like have all day to work on it, I don't ever get finished because I'll get excited about something else.
That's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
Where I think about some new thing to do to the project I already have. Yes.
I think that's why I tend to, like when I do my dotting, I tend to work small because I like to finish in one sitting.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll see people post online and they'll be like, this is my 36-inch
Right.
masterpiece. And I'm just like, I can't. I
Oh
would
my
love to,
gosh.
but it would never happen.
I don't think I've ever done anything larger than a 12-inch. And I haven't done one of those in a very long time. Just 6 inches, because I like to be done. I like to get in, do it, and be done. So I'm gonna go get my dog and I'll be right back. All right, I'm gonna use again the largest green stylus. And we're gonna use a green paint. And did I say green paint? It's green. Hold on one second. Oh, yes. Now we're gonna do one more row of dots around this petal. So just load up your green stylus and then dot right above at the tip. And for me, this takes me right to the edge. And then more walking the dots. And because these petals are larger, I do find that I tend to run out of paint before I get to the end. So I do flip my tool over, redot or redip, and then dot the rest of the way. Obviously, we're coming up on Halloween. Does anybody's neighborhood, or do you do up the Halloween decorations big in your front yard?
I used to, and now we're in that dry spell.
Yeah.
We're like, we have almost no kids now.
In your neighborhood?
Yeah, and it goes back and forth. I've had years where like there were 200 kids coming through.
We've noticed that too, that
Yeah.
the numbers have really dwindled, and
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why.
I don't know. Somebody told me it's because they have trunk or treat now. I don't know if that's true.
Oh.
I feel like that's been around a while.
Yeah.
I don't
Maybe
know.
parents feel a little safer.
Could be. Maybe
in
it,
pain.
yeah. Maybe why.
My mom has always gone, like, she's always been one of those houses that would do like candy bags. She wouldn't just hand out a piece of candy. Like, she would go all out, spend a ton of money. Every year she makes up candy bags
Oh, wow.
and she gets nobody.
But is there an age limit? I mean, if I just show up there, will she know?
Well, the trick is just to show up the next day and then you get
Oh,
And
that's
yeah.
hysterical.
But I feel bad because she's so positive every year. She's like, maybe somebody will show up.
Oh,
Aw.
it's kind of sad. What a sweet mom, though.
So we live in kind of a community. I wouldn't say it's like a gated community or anything, but it's the roads, are self-contained. You can't like just drive straight through. And man, the far side of the community, they must like compete or something.
Oh,
There's about 7 houses over on that side that they go all out. Crazy, huge blow up things and huge like skeletons. And I'm like, wow, like where do they keep all of that stuff
no idea.
for the rest of the year? But there, at least 5 houses that just I've never seen. So I mean, way bigger than Christmas.
Some people leave them up all year. I have
Oh,
a neighbor
really?
with like a 12-foot skeleton
Oh,
that
goodness.
is in their yard all year, and they dress it up like one of those geese where you change it.
Oh, that's
actually
funny.
really
I would go-
entertaining.
I bet they don't have anywhere to put it, and they're like, "Well, we're just leaving it."
Maybe that's why, because he's like been, what's his name from Nightmare Before Christmas?
Jack.
Yes, every year, and then like he will be decorated like for every holiday. Actually, to be fair, it changes a little every year, And it's just the cutest little thing. I even bring like my niece and nephew when I watch them, we check it out, like drive past it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you think it's going to look like today?
Eh.
They're very invested in that one.
Earlier this year, probably a month ago, I was at Big Lots. Where I live, we don't have a Walmart or a Target that's easy to run to. So Big Lots is the store, like if you need random stuff. And I was waiting behind somebody who I guess had pre-ordered some skeletons. Now it wasn't the 20-foot, like the giant guy.
Yes,
but
where
it
it's
was
like all in your house.
yeah, it was probably a 10 or 12, and she was picking up 6 of those.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
She dropped $1,000 on 6
Oh.
skeletons, and she was so excited to pick them up.
Are you kidding me?
And I was wondering, when I drive around, I kind of look at all the Halloween decorations and I'm like, I think of her. I'm like, I wonder what she did.
Wow, $1,000.
That is crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, she had to, I guess when you order online, like you have to
do them in bulk or something.
No, like when you pick up in the store, you pay. So
I see.
She was checking out. That's why I knew how much she spent on it, because she was right in front of me.
Got you.
Did you gasp audibly?
That is crazy.
$1,000. I wonder if she had to hide it somehow from us.
Yeah, because you figure each of those is probably $100 and something. She got
oh my gosh.
She must have an epic display, but I have yet to see it in town. So who knows?
Wow.
Maybe she just put one in each of the seats in her car and she just drives around with them. I don't know.
You just never know, really.
Well, speaking of hiding for their husband, I love this story about me, but back in the day before dotting, when I was into scrapbooking, and you'd be surprised how much scraps of paper cost. They add up. And so this was also back in the day when you still kept a checkbook.
Oh, yes.
And so my husband will never complain about how much money I spend on food. He will never say anything about that. So I was spending so much money at the scrapbook place that we had Food Town in town and we had Kroger in town. I would shop at Kroger. So if I was going to the scrapbook place, I would put down Food Town. That way I knew how much money I was spending on
That is such a good idea, though.
He wouldn't know. And he never complained. He had no idea how much I was spending. He knows now. I've confessed.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
You have a problem when you have to have a code word in the chat. So that the hubster doesn't lose you.
I love that so much.
Okay.
I want to do fun stuff like that.
Now you're gonna have to be careful with your wrist for this one, because we're gonna do some swoops here inside of there, but I felt like I had to do those to know the spacing when I was originally doing this. So we're gonna start out, and again, I'm gonna use my green stylus. Let's make sure. Actually, let's use the blue stylus on this one. Use the large end of the blue stylus with our orange paint. I need more orange paint. And we're going to do a swoop that starts with the light bulb part right underneath that orange and green that we just did the petal. Going to get that and load up the paint just maybe twice. And then I'm going to flip it around, put a little paint on the narrow end, the small end, and just slowly pull that down until you reach the purple teardrop. Yeah, be careful. I tend to rest my wrist on the edges, and I've got paint all the way to the edge. So, word to the wise.
Why is that keep going off?
Once I'm done with those swoops, then I'm going to come back and do green swoops. Again, I'm using the blue, the large end of the blue stylus. Now, if you are not a swoop fan and you don't like doing those, you can always just dot down the sides. But if you don't mind swoops, and you always get better with practice, so I'm going to do swoops on each side. And that's it for the first layer. I think I used a lot of layered paint on those purple dots. Not sure if they're ready for top dots. Dry those off a little bit. I think we'll be okay there. Are we ready for the top dots, or do we need a little bit of time to catch up?
I'm ready.
Okay. Is your paint dry enough?
Yeah, I've got a film on mine, but I've got the fan on in here, so I don't know about everybody else.
I used my plate fan.
Okay, that's what I did in general too. All right, so I'm going to start out with the purple paint. I'm going to put a purple dot with the blue rod. Use the blue rod with my purple paint. Top dot right in the center. I can tell my green paint must not be completely dry because my dot is a little wonky. I'm going to use my green stylus, the large end, and I'm going to do white top dots on the orange, the larger orange dots. I think that was like step 3. And then I would say try your smallest rod. It seems like our rods are maybe not exactly the same sizes. My smallest one is the purple rod. I think that's going to work for this. I'm going to use the bright green paint to top that the purple teardrops. But you can always go down to like a stylus, but I would say whatever your smallest rod is, just kind of compare that to your purple teardrop and see how that fits. For me, the purple rod fits nicely. I know the last class I was teaching in person, I've ordered, for my classes, I always provide a set of dotting tools for the people who it's their first time in the class. And I can't tell you how many kits I have purchased. I would bet I have probably purchased close to 100 by now. And it's always the same one. I order from the same company. It's the same one. And I'm up there leading a class and I'm telling everybody use the green stylus, which, is the largest one. And everybody, their chatter starts, little quiet whispering. And I'm like, is everything okay? And the green stylus was completely a different size. It was teeny tiny, like pinpoint. And so, I mean, you improvise, but I was like, are you kidding me? I've ordered these kits. So now I have to go back and check all of the kits because, you order lots of them, you buy them in bulk. Yep. And some of them are the right size and some of them are small. So
that's weird.
Almost done. Let's see if I can get this. I think I'm going to use my blue rod with the dark purple paint to top out the white dots. And again, if our rods are different, just kind of use whatever rod or stylus seems to fit best in that space.
I decided that I definitely don't like these swoops. They are not my friends.
Is it the first time you're doing swoops?
Yes. Some of my dots are a little off centered the grid too. I think it's partially like the way that I'm sitting in my chair. I just don't have a good overview. Hi, Dusty Butt. Oh,
I'm pretty sure my big purple dots are still too wet to top that at this moment.
Yeah, mine were. They look a little wrinkly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
really fine. I just dove in like, this will be fine. So I'll be fixing those later.
So all that's left when your purple dots are ready is just to take whatever rod that fits in there. I think we used yellow, so I would probably recommend either the pink or the blue, whatever a size down is for you, and then just do the bright green on top of the purple, and that'll be it. Awesome. How are they looking for you? Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see you. I somehow this moved. Wait, let me go back to gallery. I didn't see it.
I'll remove the spotlights and we can all hold ours up. Hold on. Let me. Well, Shalene, before we go, do you want to tell everybody what your Facebook page is so they can give you a follow?
Yeah, it's Dotting with Friends, either Facebook, Instagram, and hopefully soon I'm going to have a web page. And the idea is to sell some patterns, have patterns available so that you have options and choices. I don't think I started doing my own patterns for at least 3 years. I think I just, used other people's patterns, YouTube videos, stuff like that until I got a little more comfortable and confident. So if that is something that would help you guys, if you would like to do more practice with patterns, hopefully just keep checking back for Dotting with Friends, and I'll share the information with Tara once it's finally up and going, and that would be great. So thanks again for having me. It was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.